Brian Childress is a fractional CTO with over 15 years of experience helping businesses in healthcare, finance, education, and more to develop and scale their technology solutions. In this episode, you will learn the challenges faced by non-technical founders, what you need to know when hiring tech freelancers, consultants, and agencies, as well as the risk associated with offshore developers. You'll also learn the critical decisions of building versus validating an idea in the market, the impact of AI on startups, and how to scale a SaaS company through smart tech decisions.
So I really found that I enjoyed technology. And a big part of that, I think, is that technology is really my second career. I had a successful career early on as an outdoor guide. So I would take people rock climbing and whitewater rafting and that sort of thing, and really enjoyed it. But it wasn't stimulating certain areas for me. And so I went back to school and got into technology. I kind of just found my way into it and found it really, really fit my personality. It allowed me to really explore different areas and really dive in deep, and have really enjoyed that. And so I've been working for many, many years. A lot of my career, I've both worked full-time and had a side hustle. So I've been side hustling, at least 10 years to get to where I am. And in that, I've been able to learn and work in a lot of different ecosystems and code bases and industries, and have learned a lot. But I found that working full-time didn't always give me the challenge. And so I always felt like I needed to be working, have some sort of side hustle, working with clients, just so that I could continue to explore other technologies and other problem spaces. So I rose pretty far up the ranks, have held very illustrious titles, have accolades, I have patents, and have spoken at conferences and a lot of those sorts of things. And I'm really proud of a lot of those accomplishments. But I found that I really like being able to work on a number of different projects and really coming in and helping my clients to solve their problems. At the end of the day, I'm just a really good problem solver. I just happen to use software to solve a lot of those problems.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of people will be listening now thinking, but I'm not running a tech startup. I'm not running a SaaS business. Why would I need a CTO, or why would I need to incorporate more technology into my kind of workflow? They're like, we've got Google, Business Suite. I thought that's all we need. So I'm wondering, what are the kind of issues you see people coming up against where you step in and go, hey, there's some software here, or there's some tech solutions that can help you?
It's across the board. I've worked with a number of different startups. They're building really, really cool solutions. I focus a lot on B2B software. I've got a few clients and companies that I'm working with that are in the AI space, specifically in medical. They're doing some really interesting things. But a lot of companies, most companies now are tech-enabled, at least. They may not need a custom software solution, and that's fine, right? Custom software is very expensive. It's very time-consuming. And so if you can avoid it, absolutely. But most of my clients, they are building something internally, and they need some help. Maybe they've hired out the development to a freelancer or a development agency, and either things are going really well and they need my help to scale, or things aren't going so great and they need my help to kind of turn the ship around and get things going back in the right direction.
And what are some of the kind of common things you see people need help with from a tech perspective?
A lot of the challenges that I see are when companies that aren't necessarily tech focused, so they're not necessarily building a SaaS platform, a software-based platform for sale. They're building something that they're going to be using internally or with a very small customer base, that they hire that effort out to a development agency, and they kind of hand off all control to that agency or to that freelancer. And the big challenge that I help a lot of clients with is to regain control, because when they hand off control, that person is in charge of a lot of technology decisions. They're in effect in control of their business because they have access to the code. They understand how all the servers work and how all the hosting works. And so if there's ever an issue between the company and the development agency or freelancer that's been hired, then the development agency has a lot of control and can effectively shut down a business. And unfortunately, I've seen it happen. I've seen companies lose hundreds of thousands of dollars and wasted months towards software development efforts that just went nowhere. And so a lot of companies that I tend to work with are trying to regain control of a major part of their business, and that part is the software that's being developed.
And a lot of people are kind of not technically minded. So when you say they should have control, what does that look like? Does that look like kind of knowing what's going on, or having kind of access / full control of the product or services that you're kind of tacking onto your business?
All of those, absolutely. So a lot of the control that we start to regain is access to the source code. So typically that might be hosted in GitHub or GitLab or some other hosting platform. We'll regain control of the servers and the cloud infrastructure and any third-party services that we're leveraging. We'll bring that control back in, because a lot of times what we're seeing is that the development agency will kind of just start everything, create everything within the development agency's ecosystem and not within their client's ecosystem. And so, all the user accounts are tied to the development agency, and all the credit card invoices and all of that is in the control of the development agency. And as long as things are going well, it tends to not be an issue. It's usually when things aren't going well that we really find out how much control has been handed over to like a dev agency, for example.
And when you're communicating with these agencies, how do you kind of ensure that your vision or your kind of plan for what you're building is kind of realized? What are the best ways to communicate with a technical team or someone like yourself?
So I always like to come in as a partner. My goal is always to protect my client at the end of the day, but I need to work both with my client and with the development agency, and I need to come in as a partner. And so my goal is to always work with them in a way that can foster the most positive relationship. But at the end of the day, I need to make sure that my client maintains control, and that's my job. So, I really try to come in and value a lot of the work that's been done, the decisions that have been made, because a lot of that is based on, the knowledge that group had at the time. It's based on information that was provided by the client, which, as software is being built, we're finding out new information all the time, and so that evolves. And so, I really partner with these folks and then put together a plan to say, okay, this is what we need to do. If we need to change something in the code, if we need to change something in the architecture, or if I just need to regain control and bring a lot of that back in-house, then I'll come up with a plan and present that plan and put steps in place, and we start to act on it. So I don't like to delay. I really like to get things moving along so that we can get back into a position where we're creating value for the business. And ultimately, that's the goal, is to be able to use software to drive business value.
A lot of my guests, or I'd say a number of my guests, have mentioned using kind of no-code tools or offshore talent in order to kind of reduce costs. And so I'm wondering, what are your views around, first of all, no-code tools and the limits of those, and as well as that, using offshore talent, people that are in the Philippines or India or other places like, South America. What is the kind of pros and cons of both separate sectors?
Yeah, I'll start with the low-code or no-code solutions. I think there's a mix of views across the industry. I really like them as one of the first steps in developing a software product, because in those early days, we need to understand the problem that we're solving, and we need to validate that we're solving the problem in the right way and that we've identified the right customer. And oftentimes that doesn't really require custom software to be developed to learn those things. And so I really like to see founders and business owners kind of pursuing that avenue to do that customer validation. It's easy for us to get distracted and say, oh, we need a fully custom solution because this platform or that platform is more limited in functionality. I think it's much more valuable to try and use the limitations of some of those platforms to see how can we solve that particular problem. It's going to be a lot cheaper, and you're going to get to results or feedback from potential customers a lot faster. And I think that's the biggest value add. Now, when selecting platforms, I do think that it is important to either spend some time yourself or with someone like myself or someone with a technical background to understand what those platforms' capabilities are and where their limitations begin, so that the work that's being done in one of those platforms isn't completely lost. We're able to still leverage some of those platform functionalities if we continue to pursue any type of custom software development. So I think there's a lot of value there, and I really like to see folks explore that solution first. Now, as far as offshore or nearshore, we hear a lot of these terms thrown around, and I think the pandemic has really shown us, but we've been seeing it for the last 10 years easily, that there's a lot of really, really good talent spread across the globe. So it's not all isolated in the San Franciscos or the New Yorks of the world. There's a lot of really, really strong talent. And, there's a lot of platforms that now enable us to really tap into that talent. And, it's a lever that's really valuable to pull in a lot of businesses. And so a lot of teams that I work with, I'm working with a group now out of Eastern Europe, and we're trying to bring on a team in Latin America. So we're trying to blend, across a 9-hour time difference and being able to work with these teams. And it certainly has its challenges. It's a lot different being in the same room with your team versus being spread across the globe and dealing with time difference and that sort of thing. I think where I've seen most companies be successful in working with those teams is to have someone in the business that has a close eye on the technology, that's really looking at what's being built, how it's being built, and does it deliver the value that we're expecting. I think that's where a lot of troubles happen for businesses is they lose sight, or they are no longer, again, kind of in that controlled position where they just hand off their development to an offshore resource who may be in India or the Philippines or anywhere in the globe, and they aren't really able to see the progress that's being made. And that's where a lot of companies kind of struggle, and I think that's where we hear a lot of the negative talk around leveraging offshore or nearshore resources, which it's just strong developers somewhere else in the world.
And a lot of people will get kind of caught in this stage of building until it's perfect, as opposed to kind of, okay, this is the goal of what we're trying to solve here. Let's push that out into our systems or into our customer base and see how that works. So how do we strike that fine balance between building and validating? Because you've mentioned it a fair bit about, making sure that you're building the right solution. So how do we strike that nice balance between the two?
The biggest focus area for me is validating that what we're building is someone's willing to pay for it. It's solving the right problem. And so really I push development, whether it's a no-code or a low-code solution or custom development, I push that off as far as we can. So some of the tools that I use, like once we have an idea of what we want to build, let's go and talk to the customers. Let's go and find the people that are willing to pay us right now for a solution that hasn't been built. When we're able to do that, we know that we've found the problem and we've found the potential customer base, and we can really tap into that, and we can use them that relationship to continue to refine the product before it's even built. One of the next things that I like to do is to go and hire a designer. A designer allows us to build a clickable prototype that we can quickly iterate on. It's another thing that we can get in front of potential customers to find out, hey, is this the thing that if we build it really is going to solve your problem? And as we go through those validation steps, we're learning, we're finding out more, we're refining the product overall, so that once we get to a phase where we're looking at a low-code or a no-code solution, or ultimately custom software, which is really where I hang out, then we know that we're building the right thing. And it's a lot easier for me as a technical leader to figure out what resources are required, whether it's development resources or money, and at least be able to give a better estimation of how long it's going to take and how much it's going to cost. I like to say that if you can't sell, what I call a clickable prototype to a potential customer, then what's the chance of you being able to sell a fully fledged custom development project that's cost you, potentially a couple $100,000 and 6 months to a year of work? If you can't sell, there's not a lot that I can do on the technology side to help that.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure there's a lot of founders out there now that are coming to you, a lot of business owners that are coming to you now and going, oh, hey, Brian, I've been looking at this chat GPT stuff. I'm all in on AI. How can I bring AI into my business? A lot of people are hyped up around AI, and I see how it can be used in the workplace. I can see solutions for it, but it's not always just sitting there and doing, chat GPT prompts or anything like that. So I'm wondering what your stance on it is, someone who is much more into the technology field than I am. Where can you see AI being used in a kind of more broad sense in other businesses, or a lot of businesses, should I say?
That's a fantastic question. I wish I knew some of the ways that we could use it, because I don't know if I'm creative enough to solve some of those business problems. But I will share some of the ways that I'm seeing it really take hold in businesses specifically. So we're seeing a lot of solutions that are able to tap into internal knowledge bases and being able to ask questions of internal knowledge. So not the same thing that exists out there on the internet. So basically, kind of what ChatGPT provides us, but more deep understanding of what's going on within a business. We're seeing really interesting ways that we can just kind of aggregate and understand the sheer amount of content that's generated every day specific to certain industries. So, I was talking with a potential client not too long ago about how they're looking to use AI to parse and understand these deeply scientific documents, papers that are being written, and give just a quick synopsis of what's going on within that paper, just a quick understanding so that a consumer every day can get an idea of what's contained within those documents and maybe want to dive in deeper. They're even going as far as looking at generating different types of content from that type of information. So I think it's really, really interesting. I don't know that we're even close to scratching the surface of what power AI can have for a business. I think there's a lot around just being able to generate content as a starting place for emails and outbound communications and that sort of thing. And I expect we'll see a lot of that come out in the next 18 months or so. But I would really expect we're going to see a big push towards AI in the ways that we can automate and understand. I'm definitely seeing it with a couple of the companies that I'm working with in the healthcare space and how they're using not necessarily generative AI, but they're using machine learning to evaluate and understand and predict potential health issues, or respiratory, or muscle and bone issues, or something along those lines. So it's really, really interesting the breadth that AI is having.
Yeah, no, I must admit, AI is definitely having a great impact on the medical and pharma sector, but there's a lot of kind of worries about privacy and all that kind of stuff and having access to data. So I know it's an interesting space to be in at the moment, but it's also one of those ones where there's a lot of drawbacks. So I'm wondering for you, what are your kind of future predictions or gut feelings towards AI in the workplace? What might the next 5 or 10 years look like from a technology person's perspective? Will AI be in our everyday workflows, or will it be kind of like in the background, like you said, where we're kind of using it as a tool rather than the whole entire, organization type thing?
I expected to see it as a tool, and I expect it to kind of almost not necessarily fade into the background, but become so much part of our day-to-day workflows that you don't even understand kind of what's happening behind the scenes. And just, I expect to see drastic acceleration in knowledge workers and how much they're able to create and the quality that they're able to create just so much faster by being empowered by some of these tools. So I would expect to see quite a bit of that. I think it is a very, very powerful tool. We're just at the beginning stages, so we don't understand a lot of the biases that are being injected into, some of the data that's being used. And so I think we're still going to learn quite a bit just as a society over the next few years as it continues to kind of eat the world. But I do think I've heard this from many people, and I would agree that we're going to start to differentiate ourselves from our peers, where if you're using AI as a tool in your day-to-day workflow, you're going to surpass your peers that choose not to use AI in their day-to-day workflow. Now, using it to solely create everything, no, I don't think that we're quite there yet. But I do think that, like you said, it is a tool, and it's a very valuable tool that, if leveraged properly, can really accelerate individual and business growth.
Love that. So let's say AI is a tool that we can look at as business owners to bring into our business in whichever way possible. Let's say you've got that kind of internal chat tool that's going to help you with your knowledge or help you to kind of analyze data a bit. What other tools can a business owner look at to bring into their business? Not specifically AI, but things that are tech solutions that they can bring into their business today that will help them run more efficiently or help them spot problems or, just better track things. What are some tools that you would suggest?
I'll start with a little bit higher up than just a tool, but I think one of the areas of opportunity that I see in a lot of businesses is around data. And data is just an extremely valuable thing. I like to say that it's almost free to store, relatively. It's very inexpensive to store, but it's almost impossible to recreate. And unfortunately, a lot of businesses are letting data kind of flow through their organizations, and then it's completely lost. And so they're not capturing information that can be valuable for driving business decisions down the road. And so I see a lot of opportunity for businesses to do better capturing of information, especially if they have a software solution, understanding how their users are using their particular platforms. What challenges do they have? What opportunities do they have to improve the customer experience or the user experience or the employee experience? And so I think there's a lot of opportunity there to capture the data. And then there's a lot of tools that are required to be able to digest and understand just the sheer amounts of data that an organization can create.
Nice. So where should we be capturing this data, or how should we be capturing this data? Is it kind of in the back end of a lot of the software we're using, or should we be doing kind of surveys, using paid marketing? Like, how should we be collecting this data?
Again, kind of all of the above. It really depends on what information we're trying to gather. So there's a lot of data that we can capture within the context of the software that we build to understand user behavior, to continue to improve that user experience. A lot of data, though, we can't really get an accurate view on without going and actually talking to our customers. And I think there's a lot of organizations that would prefer to capture the data that they can and avoid talking to their customers. And I think that's a mistake for a lot of businesses, is they lose the view of the people that are paying for their product. And when we're able to just go and talk to our customers and understand their pain points, we just have a much better idea. And then we can, potentially validate some of that with other data points that we have within our ecosystem. But just capturing data from the software that we build doesn't necessarily always give us a complete picture.
And so for business owners at the moment, let's say they're trying their best to be as technologically advanced as possible. They're trying to make sure that they're collecting all their data. What are some of the other things that, from a tech perspective, they might be neglecting? So we've got data over here, we've got AI over there. What is something else that we can kind of bring into our business to make it much more technologically advanced, should we say?
There's a lot of really, really good tools. You mentioned having the Google Suite within an organization. So, that brings a lot of valuable shared tools, email and calendar and shared drive, being able to create and collaborate on documents. I think those are really, really valuable. As we continue to be a very distributed workforce, ways to collaborate, I think, are really valuable. And it goes beyond, a video chat like you and I are having into, whiteboarding tools where we can do diagramming and really be able to convey the ideas that we have to another human in a distributed manner. So we see this a lot with collaboration on documents and collaboration in diagrams. And I think we're going to continue other areas of opportunity for individuals to be able to sync up and be able to do it both synchronously, like if we were on a call together, or asynchronously, and being able to work when is best for me and you work when is best for you. And then we kind of just sync up that information. So.
A lot of people are working remotely now, and you're right, they're working asynchronously, across different time zones and all that kind of stuff. It's definitely becoming more and more common. Do you have any kind of preferred tools that you like to use to work asynchronously? There's so many different things out there. There's Slack, and then there's Trello and all this kind of stuff. But I'm wondering, from your perspective, is there anything you found that works just particularly well?
It's funny, as a technologist, I tend toward the least technological options as far as some of that goes. So, for me, I live in Slack, I live in Trello for a lot of projects and client work that I do. I have very simple notes that I can share with different teams, but it's largely document-based. For me, I do a lot of software architectural diagrams, and so I'll use tools like Miro, which has fantastic collaboration capabilities. So I've found that to be really, really helpful. And then if a client has another tool that they use, then I'm happy to jump in and learn it. But those tend to be the ones that I use in my day-to-day work.
And what does a software architectural diagram look like? What does that kind of describe, and sort of what does it do?
So it can describe a lot of different things. So for someone that may not have a deep technical understanding, it's likely it's going to look somewhere between boxes and lines and a subway diagram or a subway map. But really what a software architecture diagram and some other diagrams that we use, what they're trying to do is communicate visually what's happening within the system. So a lot of times those diagrams will display how data moves through the system. So it'll go from component A to component B to component C. It could show us what the user interaction is with a piece of software. So when a user clicks a button, we can then diagram the actions that are taken either by another human or by a machine, by the software. All of that can be diagrammed. And I found that I really, because I'm a very visual person, I gravitate towards drawing on some sort of collaborative tool like Miro as a way to really try and bring everybody onto the same page. And so then we have something that we can kind of all point to and express the thoughts and ideas that we have.
And so I like to kind of do most of my learning through stories or, stories from another person of their lived experience. So I'm wondering if you could kind of talk me through, you don't have to use any names or anything specific, but a problem that a client had, the solution you brought to them, and then what the outcome was, and then, what that relationship looked like for you as the CTO.
Let's see. I'm going to do my best to protect the innocent here. But so earlier this year, I had an opportunity to jump into a very interesting AI-based project. It was one that a team of developers, I think at one point we had developers in 6 different time zones, myself included. So a very distributed team, was building out a platform, had built something that was a bit more complex than they needed, and it was a bit more complex than they understood as a team. And so they had a lot of challenges being able to deliver that particular platform on time. So when I joined the project was already, I think, 3 weeks behind on delivery. Unfortunately, nothing was working end to end. There were certain pieces that were working, but it wasn't working. A lot of frustration. Clients were kind of unhappy and really, really concerned because we were working against an actual deadline. It wasn't in software. There's a lot of kind of made up deadlines where we say, yeah, we want to deliver this in Q3. This one had a very immovable deadline, and that was a big challenge for us. I came into the project, there had already been, I think 5 to 6 months worth of work put in. And so I needed to kind of turn the ship around really, really quickly. And so within the first probably 2 days, I re-architected the entire system. Within the first week, we had moved to the new architecture and gotten our data flowing end to end. And so we were receiving a lot of data from various sources. We were using AI and machine learning models to make determinations about that data. And then we were displaying the result of that determination on a series of dashboards and reports and that sort of thing that were generated. So it was a really, really fun and interesting project that had a lot of challenges. The deadline that we couldn't move, a team that was distributed across the globe. We were constantly adding new different subject matter experts for various areas of the data and the application that we were working on. We were able to get everything working. We were able to get everything flowing within the first, I would say, probably 3 to 4 weeks. We were in really, really good shape at that point. And we were able to deliver that before our deadline. Clients were really happy. The development team was really happy. They felt like they were able to make a lot of progress because we removed a lot of the unnecessary complexity within the system. And it made a lot of sense. And so new developers that we brought on were able to understand just the simple nature of the software and the architectural design. They could understand it pretty quickly, like within maybe a couple hours, and we're able to contribute effectively. And so for me, that was a really proud moment to kind of see that huge transformation in such a short time. And I'm really proud of the team and the hard work they put in.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes simplifying things is the best way forward, and also it's the only way to make things work, in a way that makes, things go forward. Right. So it seems like you've done a lot of kind of learning or a lot of kind of research, not specifically just about text, tech, sorry, but also just, a lot of things that are to do with mindset or business. And I'm wondering whereabouts you do that kind of learning. Is it books, podcasts, YouTube?
Yeah, so it took me a little while to kind of figure out my learning style and the ways that I learn best. I struggled for a long time with reading. I just felt like I was really slow and wasn't able to really capture the information. But I'm really, really good at auditory learning. And so I probably go through an audiobook a week. There's many podcasts that I subscribe to and listen to regularly. So I'm that person that listens at 2x of pretty much everything. I'm confident that I'm capturing the information, so I really am. It is landing for me. I'll watch YouTube. I do a lot of, like, if it's a technical topic, I'll watch like technical conference talks while I'm washing dishes. And again, I'm going to ramp it up to 1.5x or 2x speed so that I can get through a lot of content. But that tends to be the area that or the ways that I consume the most content. And then I think it's not only consuming the content, but it's also putting it into practice and implementing what you learn. And so for me, that's an opportunity to implement it for my clients and be able to deliver value, based on things that I may have learned the week before.
And what are some audiobooks or podcasts or YouTube channels that you've really got a lot of value from, or that you get continued regular value from?
I think most recently I've been listening to a lot of Dr. Benjamin Hardy's books. So 10x is better than 2x and Who Not How, and a lot of those types of more business focused books. A lot of those focus more around mindset. I've really gotten a lot out of those books. My general rule of thumb is if I hear about a book, for example, from 2 to 3 people, I'll add it to my list. I'll go ahead and buy it and listen to it. Because I'm just such a ravenous consumer of audiobooks, I tend to kind of go in new and interesting areas.
And what was the kind of main takeaway that you got from the 10x is better than 2x and all that kind of stuff? What was the thing that stuck?
A lot of it just really comes down to who you surround yourself with and who you're working with. We're able to do a lot as, high performers or high achievers can really do quite a bit, but there is a ceiling that's created, and we have to find ways to work with others and empower others in collaborative ways in order to break past that ceiling that's created just by our own abilities. So I've really started to lean into that more and trying to find ways that I can collaborate more with others to be able to help them to achieve their goals, and for me to continue to pursue my own.
Cool. And what are your current personal goals? Do you have like health goals, business goals? Like what kind of goals have you got at the moment?
I recently joined a new mastermind, and I'm very excited about some of the ways that goals are presented and kind of talked about within that group. So for me, yes, there's certainly some health goals. I want to find something adventurous to go after, whether it's a triathlon or climbing another mountain or something big that I can start to train for and go after probably in 2024. I've got some financial goals, some business goals. Family is really important, so I'd like to be able to do some more travel now that things have shifted for us, and we can do a bit more travel. I'd like to be doing at least let's say 2 international trips a year, and going somewhere fun once a quarter, and so. But in order to do that, I have to continue to kind of position my business in a way that allows me to achieve some of those goals.
And I'm glad you brought up masterminds there, because a high percentage of my guests have been in masterminds or a part of a mastermind. And I always ask them, how did you find the mastermind? Obviously, you said what you're getting out of it is, you're being able to structure your goals better. But how did you find the mastermind, and, what keeps you in this mastermind?
So I think I found them through, I just started looking for them. And so I didn't, it's gotten easier, but it's still pretty hard to go to Google and say masterminds in my area or mastermind based on this. So most of them I've gotten connected to through other connections on, say, LinkedIn, for example, and kind of being brought into that ecosystem. And really what brought me into those masterminds is a shared kind of set of goals and a shared set of operating principles. And so just getting around people that were a bit more like me and thought a bit more like me, or could even go against some of my thoughts and really push, but we're all trying to grow and achieve together. And what keeps me in is that community, is that those relationships that are being built. And for me, I need the accountability. And so I look to others to hold me accountable, and I like to help others be accountable as well. That way we're all kind of growing together.
Mm. And so would you say at the moment you have a growth mindset, that you're seeing yourself being able to grow your business and grow yourself as a person?
Very much so. Very much so. And I can certainly recognize some, if you look at the growth versus limited mindset, I certainly still have some of those limiting beliefs. But I've certainly, through a lot of the reading of the books and implementing of the things that I'm learning, really seen a strong shift towards a growth mindset, and really looking to, there's so many amazing opportunities out there available to us.
And you said earlier about, if you read something, you're looking to implement it. What is the most recent thing you've implemented that you've read or come across?
So I've been looking for better ways to manage my time. And so I've, tried various ways to schedule, every minute of my day. And so I've found a new way that seems to be working around time boxing, because, I have a number of different projects that I'm working on or goals that I'm pushing for, and I need to allot appropriate amounts of time towards those efforts. And so what I've done is, and I think I stumbled across it on YouTube, but basically a new time boxing method where I can write my top 3 goals for the day. I might have some other kind of miscellaneous tasks that I'll identify. And then I write out every day on my schedule and break it down into 30-minute increments. And then I start to assign, if it's a meeting, then I'm going to put that on my calendar. And then the time that's left, I'll tie to those different tasks and start with the most important one first.
Lovely. Well, it seems kind of like that you're a type of person who is always constantly growing, constantly evolving, and with that comes an element of self-satisfaction. You become a happier person, you become a healthier person. But I'm wondering for you, what is it about what you do that brings you the most joy?
I like to help people grow, and I like to see the growth in other people. I think going back to some of my earlier professional pursuits and being a guide, I really enjoyed seeing people learn and experience new things. And I continue to try and find ways to do that now. If it's working with a business owner or with a startup founder, really seeing them kind of light up and feel like a weight has been lifted off their shoulders because we're moving in a better direction. I really get a lot of joy out of that.
Where can the people find you online?
So I'm probably most active on LinkedIn. So Brian-Childress on there. Feel free to reach out, send me a message, a connection. I'm happy to connect with anyone. I have a website as well. And yeah, so I'm excited to connect with anyone anytime.
Thank you for listening to People Explained. New episodes come out every Monday. We would appreciate it if you gave us a review on Apple Podcasts and shared this episode with a friend.